You mentioned the guitar behind me, and I wanted to start asking you a question about the guitar, your guitar playing as well. Um, you've always been an artist, a musician who tries to challenge himself. Now, is it true that you started getting into alternate picking? Because I'm sure you're a very accomplished guitarist. So how do you challenge yourself?
There's so much to learn on the guitar. Even by the time all of us spend a lifetime learning, you're only scratching the surface, no matter how good you are. So it's I'll just try to dive into completely different techniques. Recently it's just the right hand doesn't only just hold a pick. You can do anything. You can do so much with the right hand, and I would love to spend time working on slide guitar. I think that's such a great tool. I just haven't had the time, but I'll just find something I dig. Maybe I'll dive into a country player and learn how to get my chicken picking down better, or dive into some neo soul. I think there's a lot of great neo soul players. The last thing I would do these days is to go and look up shred guitar. That's what I was when I was younger. I tried to learn all the shred stuff. Now that I'm older, I like to learn more bluesy, jazzy, some classy phrasing stuff that I wouldn't necessarily naturally have in my brain, that I want to find. So, it's a never ending quest for a new bag of tricks.
You mentioned different genres of music, and now Myles, he has a background in jazz a little bit, and he's also, by your own words, a very accomplished guitarist. So, is there a trade-off between the two of you? Do you kind of, are your playing styles very separate?
Well, I think we've done it deliberately. Usually, when you have friends that are guitar players, you try to learn as much as you can from that player. But me and Myles don't. We like each other to be complete. We like to be independent from one another, I think, because it brings different things to the table when it comes to songwriting times. And if we're just similar players, we're going to write similar stuff. So I think we fill our gaps. When we first got together, I was the heavy metal guy, and he was the more bluesy, jazzy guy. Nowadays, I think those lines are blurred, because when you write with somebody for so long, you start knowing what you start coming together a little bit. So even on this last Alter Bridge record, our producer said, "I have no idea who wrote what on this record. I can't tell anymore." So I think Myles wrote 6 songs. I wrote 6 songs. We put them on the record, and he had no idea who wrote what on there. Back in the day, you would have been able to tell. Not anymore.
Well, that's a good thing then. I suppose that you're getting as good as the other in their respective fields in a way.
Yeah.
And kind of going on what you said in terms of songwriting, did focusing on your right hand, did that affect your songwriting at all for this new Tremonti record then?
No, I deliberately throw all kinds of technique away when I'm writing songs. I don't sit down and warm up on the guitar when I go into a writing session. I like to go into it thinking pure mood, pure melody, pure sound bed. The technical stuff will come later. I don't write with technique in mind, unless, like I said, unless I learned like a neo soul song, for example, and it had a right hand finger style pattern that I wouldn't play normally. I would, whenever I learn a new right hand pattern, I'll sit and I'll just fumble around on the guitar until I write something with it. And if it's technique driven, but most of the time I will try to not get bogged down too much in the technicalities of the guitar and the theory of the guitar, and just let whatever happens. Because the more I think, the more I follow the rules, the less creative I am. I think I like to just kind of fall down a flight of stairs and see if I can land on my feet.
With that in mind, then, as you were writing for this album, when did it start to take shape in your mind? When did you start to see kind of some connections between songs, and when did it start to become kind of a cohesive thing?
Well, whenever I finish a record, I hit the ground running with the next record. So this record's been written since the minute Walk the Sky was done. So some of the ideas have been living for years and years and years before that. I always store my ideas that don't get used for a later time. But it wasn't until I had a date to get into the studio where I go through all the ideas that I've written and then pick my favorite ideas and then try to figure out what's going to make this a dynamic record. How many? I can't just have 12 blazing heavy metal songs, or else it's not as heavy anymore because you don't have anything slow to offset the speed or the heaviness. So I like to have a record have lean on the heavier side, but also have some more atmospheric songs. Maybe a few uplifting songs, a few really dark songs, a few fast songs, a few slow, mix it up as much as you can. But I like a record to come out usually energized, and then take you on a ride from there.
With what you mentioned just now, I read you had about 17 or 18 demos that you took to the studio, and then you had to chop off about 4 or 5. Was that kind of the selection criteria? Well, kind of going, well, I have a couple of fast songs now, so maybe this one, I'll save this idea. Is that kind of how that goes? Yeah,
absolutely. And even on the last record we did with Alter Bridge, the song that I worked on the hardest for that record was the song that made this record, called Under the Sun. So Under the Sun, Elvis thought it was too, it carried the same space dynamically as the title track, Walk the Sky. So he said, all right, we're either going to need to cut one of these songs, or we can't, use this song, and you save it. So I'm like, I'm definitely going to save it for my next record. Because, when you put that much work into getting through these songs, the thought of cutting ones that you really like is just, it's really stressful. So that's why I saved Under the Sun for this record.
This is maybe a very mean question then, but was there something that you really liked that you had to cut for this record?
Yeah, every one of them. I don't, if a song goes through the demo phase, it means I spent a lot of time on it and a lot of heart and a lot of soul on it. So one of my favorite songs that got cut, it just sounds like a different band. It just sounded like something completely, like it could have been out of the 70s. It could have been a Bad Company or something lighter than that kind of song. And I loved it, but it just, when you look at the whole album, it just didn't quite fit. So maybe I'll use it for, I could throw it at Alter Bridge and see what happens.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
In terms of those songs that you write, then, is that fully formed with the themes? Because you mentioned Under the Sun, and was that already conceptually formed as well? Or is that something that comes later?
No, the lyrics come with melodies a lot of the times, but the final lyrics come when the record is going to get recorded. Because if you write a song and write lyrics to a song, and all of a sudden you get with your bandmates like an Alter Bridge, and somebody says, I love the song, but let's use a different bridge, and you've already written the lyrics, I like to wait until you get the blessing from everybody that we're going into the studio doing this to finalize lyrics. But like I said, I write a lot of lyrics before that point, just because when I'm writing melodies, I like to have lyrics that fit to be able to demo the song. But the real toughest part about the lyrics is the last bit, when you're really finalizing them, and you don't want to go through that process unless the song's finalized.
Mm. And now, am I right in saying that this time around you didn't want to focus on kind of the whole pandemic thing too much, but you wanted to kind of well, as you said, that there's some dark songs, but there's also some hope on the record. So was that kind of what you were looking for conceptually?
Yeah, I tried to not think about what was going on in the world too much, other than the title track. The title track was definitely the only song on the record that dealt with this time in our lives. It was about finding out that my wife was pregnant during a global pandemic, and in general, it's just a message from a father to a child in a world that's kind of grown cold, and it's imagine having a kid right now graduating high school during 2020 or going to college in 2021 and just having their lives turns upside down. It's just a message. Don't let what's going on right now change the person that you are.
Yeah, I wrote down that line, don't let this cold world change you. But unfortunately, and this is personally for me, but I'm sure a lot of people have that as well, you have to remind yourself of that, especially when times are tough.
Yeah.
So what is it that you do to remind yourself of that? Is that spending time with family or just picking up the guitar?
I was going to say, you took the words out of my mouth. If I sit down with my kids, I'm the happiest guy in the world. That's what I'd rather do more than anything. I have to hunt down my kids to get them to spend time with me because they're teenagers now. But if they ever say, Dad, I want to watch a movie, I'd drop everything, because it's, my daughter's 7 months old, so I can hang out with her. She's got no choice. She hangs out with me all day long.
Can't run away yet.
No. So, spending time with family is definitely by far the most fulfilling thing for me.
What do your teenage children make of what you do?
They like it. They think it's cool, but it's funny. Their generation, and not their generation, it's just a broad statement, but their group, none of them listen to rock and roll music. None of them. My son's had one friend growing up that moved away, but his name is Clem, and he plays guitar, and he's the one kid that of all my kids' friends that even liked rock music. So he lived in the next neighborhood over, and I would bring him all kinds of gifts. I'd bring him amplifiers and guitars and effects pedals and all kinds of stuff. So the kid's got a room full of guitar gear because he's the only kid that liked rock. And I was like, all right, here, have this pedal or have, So, but yeah, they don't have posters on their walls of bands. I think my youngest son liked Imagine Dragons for a little bit, so we took him to the concert. They liked 21 Pilots. They like stuff that's all over the radio. They're not. They liked Iron Maiden because there was a video game, an Iron Maiden video game, and they loved it. And I have the Iron Maiden pinball machine at my house. But they, when I'm driving them around, they listen to speed metal all the time, and they just play on their phones while I'm listening to speed metal. So.
Because I'm trying to slowly indoctrinate them with metal in the background. That's good. Well, getting back to the album then, because there's a couple of concepts that I find very interesting, and you don't have to explain the lyrics or anything because I know you like to keep it open a little bit. But the notion of would you kill, I thought that's been a discussion between me and my friends for a long time. What would you do in certain situations, and how far would you be willing to go? So when did that concept kind of come into your mind?
Well, when I wrote the melody to the chorus, the first lyric I wrote was, would you know if it might be the end? And would you kill if the chance came again? That just completed the rhyme for me. And once I complete the rhyme, and I was like, what can I take from this? Would you kill if the chance, what would you do? If you were going for some goal, how far are you willing to take it? Or if you're protecting your family, or if you're protecting your own life, if you're, you read like the book, The Road, and the guy's got his son and there's cannibals and there's this and that. What would you do to protect your kid? What would you, it's just that, where would you draw the line?
And this is very, very mean, but have you found an answer for yourself?
I haven't been pushed to that limit to find out.
Luckily.
Yes.
Luckily. Well, and musically then, because you talk about how kind of the lyrics are entwined with the melodies and the kind of the music. So how do you capture a certain mood or a certain sense then in the melody, in the music? Do you think about that before, for instance, with Would You Kill? Do you think about the concept and then try to write something, or is it always afterwards that the concept becomes apparent?
The concept comes when you hit a key line. With me, I'll write melodies, and I will. It's funny. I do songwriting clinics when I'm on tour, and I tell people how I write lyrics and how I write melodies, and I always show them how when I write a melody, I'll spit words out, random words. They don't need to make any sense. I try not to overthink it, but I just spit words out that will fit the rhythm of the melody, and then once I come up with the melody, I will I'll maybe record myself for 10 minutes singing that melody over and over and over again. And then I will, you know how you can blur your vision? I'll blur my brain and I'll listen. I'll close my eyes and I'll listen to what I sang. And words will naturally just pop out of the gibberish you're saying, you know, and you'll hear things that you might not have even said, but they sound like that word. And I'll pull things out of just the mistakes I made as I was singing. And that's a good way to kind of get a foothold in what the song is going to be about. And then you come across a line like, "Would you kill?" And it's like, all right, this song's about how far you're willing to go. And I'm going to now try to make this cohesive lyrically and tell as much of a story as I can. Sometimes I like lyrics so much and a melody so much with a lyric in it. It might not make as much sense, but it's so good to my brain and so good to my heart that I'm like, I don't care if it's 100% clear. These lyrics need to be right here. And I'll do my best to make it make as much sense. But to me, the most important thing is to create that mood, you know, that save that mood. And it doesn't need to be too literal all the time.
Yeah, I suppose ultimately it just has to sound good as well, right?
Yeah, it has to make you feel something. And I think lyrics mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I mean, still to this day, I'll hear songs that I've heard since the 80s, and I'll be like, I never knew they said that. I thought they said this, and now it means something completely different. Sometimes I'm let down by that.
Final question then, because I think you have another one coming up. Now that the world is slowly opening up again, I believe you've already been able to play some shows, and you're playing America, and then in 2022 you're coming to Europe over here. How do you look at life with that perspective on the horizon?
You know, I just hope that you know, we don't get ready for a tour and then all of a sudden 2 days into it, some new regulation or some rule happens that destroys the tour. You know, it takes a lot to record a record, to get a crew together, to get rehearsals done, to get everything put in place, to get with the promoters and the agents and all that stuff, and get on our planes and fly to Europe and get all our gear over there, only to have something bad happen 2 days into it. You know, so it's just fingers crossed. We are very, very strict on our tours here. That we've done one tour, and it was bizarre because you can't, you know, you can't have guests, you can't sit down at restaurants, you can't go out, you know, you can't do anything. So it's a little bit, you know, it's like our song Isolation, Alter Bridge, you know, you're isolated. It's good for the, it's good for the creative side though. You got a lot of time by yourself to sit with your guitar. I'll tell you that much.
One last thought then, because you are away from your young child. How is it dealing with that then? Can you
Horrible.
kind of feel it? Fair enough.
It's the worst. It's painful. So on this next tour, I'm going to do my best. I think we have a little break in the middle. I'm just going to, you know, fly home and then get the COVID test before I fly back. You know? Yeah, it's tough.
Fair enough. Well, I wish you all the best with your children and with the album and tour as well. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, man. Hope to see you soon.